Boatworks Today is a viewer-supported show. To learn more on how you can get involved and watch extended ad-free versions of these videos, please visit our website, boatworkstoday.com, and click on the top of the heading where it says Support This Show. Thank you. What is going on, everybody? I hope you're doing well. My name is Andy with Boatworks Today, and this week, well, let's just say it didn't quite go as planned. Nope, not even close. All right, so I'm not going to bore you with the details because honestly, I really don't think people really care. But all I will say was that this entire week has been like playing a game of whack-a-mole with 911s just constantly popping up. Take care of one issue, two more crop up, and unfortunately, every one of these 911s that came up, they weren't things that could wait. They needed to be done like right now. So yeah, that kind of screwed up my schedule for this week because as a result of that, I haven't even been up on the Bertram once since I finished laying the glass. So kind of put me in a little bit of a pickle for this week's video. So as a way to try and salvage, this week's video, what I'm going to do is I'm going to do a Q&A follow-up to last week's video because there were quite a few questions that came up with a few kind of reoccurring themes. So I'm going to focus on that today. And then also at the very end, I've got a kind of a little bit of announcement. It's exciting for me, and I think that in the long run, it's actually going to be very beneficial for you as well. So let's just jump into it. All right, so to start things off, one of the more common questions or slash reactions was that people were pretty surprised I decided to go with a polyester resin versus something else like epoxy. And there's a reason for that. And for the most part, when you're looking around online and looking at, going through different forums and stuff, polyester resin seems to get, kind of like a bad rap. And I just don't get it. So I wanted to use poly resin to kind of prove a point here, that when you're using that resin with the right types of glass, polyester resin is a great material to be using. It's cost effective, it's readily available at a number of places, much more so than, say, like vinyl ester. And it's got a pretty long shelf life. From the time that it's manufactured, you have about 12 months to work with it before it starts to get, kind of funky on you. So getting back to the cost effectiveness, one of the main focuses of this channel is to not only show, how to do particular things, but it's also to show what materials to use. And, looking at this from a DIY perspective, cost is always a big concern. So not only am I trying to show you how, but I'm also trying to show you the most cost-effective way to accomplish a particular goal. And polyester resin, let's just face it, it is a very cost-effective and reasonably priced material to be using, especially if you're going to be working on larger areas. So now if you have not seen last week's video, I'll put a pop-up window right up in here. But for that aspect of the project, I ended up using Total Boat Laminating Polyester Resin. And check it out, the results speak for themselves. It's an excellent quality resin, and it's extremely cost-effective, especially when you figure in the fact that all of the Total Boat products include free shipping. Now, if you want to find out any more information about this, I will have a link down below. It is an affiliate link, but I will have a link down below where you can go and check out the products, and if you're interested, you can order some as well. So another question that popped up quite a few times was, well, why did the resin change color? When I first mixed it and poured it out, it was green, and then it turned brown. And well, the reason it changes color is because of the chemical reaction. Now, with polyester resin, you add in, the hardener for polyester resin is called, well, you refer to it as MEK, but it's methyl ethyl ketone with peroxide. So when you pour it in, you give it a good stir, and that starts the chemical reaction or the hardening process, which is why it'll change from one color to the other. Now, most resins do typically change color when you add in the catalyst or the hardener. But with polyester resin, it seems to be a lot more obvious, I guess. And honestly, I use that as a bit of a gauge. It kind of lets me know that if I pour the hardener in and I stir it and it changes color like that fast, you probably mixed it a little bit too hot. You put a little bit too much catalyst in. On the other hand, if you mix it in and you give it a good stir and it doesn't change color, within like a minute or so, well, then you probably under-catalyzed it. So on this project, because I wanted to have some working time, what I was looking for was to basically have about a minute or so before it changed color. And I kept an eye on it just to make sure that it did. And as long as it changed color, then, then I knew I was in the safe zone, I guess. So, but if I remember right, I think I tried to catalyze that a little over 1%. I think I was doing 32 ounce mixes, and I was putting in like, what, 12 cc's of mech, something like that. But I didn't want the reaction to happen like right away, because then I would have ran out of working time trying to get the glass smoothed out. So the reason I changed colors, chemical reaction. So another question that came up quite a few times was, well, what was the reason for using the Partol, that purple stuff that I rolled on over top of the gel coat, towards the end of the video? And I know that I've addressed this, quite a few times in other videos, but I got to remember that there's a lot of new people that sub to this channel each month, so they may not have seen it, or they may not have seen those past videos. So I'll address it here again. So a little bit of a quick history lesson on polyester resin. In order for polyester resin to actually fully cure, it needs to have something applied over the surface as an air barrier, because polyester resin cures in the absence of air. And you can accomplish this in a number of different ways. You can go back over top with that same polyester resin with a little bit of wax additive mixed in. You can also use gel coat, with the wax mixed in. I just kind of dropped the ball and, well, I forgot to get the gel coat that already had the wax into it. So being the gel coat is also a polyester-based resin, even though I go over top of the glass with the gel coat cures the glass, but now I needed to put something over top of the gel coat to cure the gel coat. If I don't do that, then when I come back in, well, what was supposed to be this week to sand it, it would have just gummed up the sandpaper and just made a mess out of the whole work. So by fully curing it, that means you're going to be able to actually sand it cleanly without blowing through a whole box of sandpaper. So PVA is essentially, it's like a liquid plastic, and you can apply this a number of different ways. You can spray it on, you can brush it on, roll it like I did in the video. Now I generally don't like to spray PVA just because you're spraying it. You're putting that material airborne in the shop. And it's one thing if you're able to do it in the middle of summer with all the doors open, or even better yet, do it outside. But when you're in an enclosed area, for the next 4 or 5 months, I like to try and keep the spraying down to a minimum. So by rolling it, no overspray, and actually use quite a bit less of the material, because none of it is getting wasted, just getting blasted into the air. So given the choice, you do get a better, smoother finish when you spray the PVA. But indoors, when I'm just trying to cure something that I know I'm going to be coming back and sanding and fairing later, having a smooth surface is not really an important issue for me. It's not like I'm spraying the inside of a mold to cast a part. So I'm just trying to get the material itself to cure. So more oftentimes than not, I tend to roll it out just because it's convenient, to be honest. So the last question I'm going to answer before I jump into, I guess, the announcement, so to speak, is there's a reoccurring theme, I guess, of people under the impression that you're not able to apply new polyester resin over top of old. Now, just a quick little history lesson. I'm not sure when what the exact numbers are, but I can tell you, in 20 years of working on boats, I've maybe come across 1 or 2 hulls that were not actually built out of polyester resin. Certainly from 2000 and earlier, back to the very beginning, almost every single boat, I'd say about 95, maybe even 98% of all boats that have been built prior to that, they were all done using polyester resin. There are a few more higher end boats that'll use like vinyl ester, and some really high end boats that'll use epoxy, but for the most part, most boats were all built using polyester resin. Now again, getting back to that there was the idea that you can't apply new material over top of old. And honestly, I'm not quite sure where that idea came from, because you can apply brand new polyester resin over top of old. It can be 60 years old and it'll still work just fine. There's 2 things you need to make sure that have been done. Is one, obviously the surface needs to be clean. If you can't have grease on there, if there's any dirt, all that needs to be removed. And it needs to be well sanded. Now normally when I'm going to be doing something like that, I'll do all my sanding with 60 grit paper. You want to create a good tooth on the surface for the new resin to bite onto. But if you do those 2 things, you will have absolutely 0 issues with new resin bonding onto old. And somewhat spinning off of that question, there was a few comments that came up said that, well, I thought you weren't able to apply glass over top of gel coat. And that's yes and no. You know, you gotta remember, gel coat is still a polyester-based resin. It's still a polyester-based material. Now, it is true that you don't want to apply glass over top of thick gel coat. Thick gel coat is very, very brittle. It doesn't flex, and it cracks very, very easily, and it has no strength to it. However, if you sand that gel coat down thin, very, very thin. Before I laid this glass up on the Bertram, I sanded it down to the point where you could almost start to see through it to the glass beneath it. If I had to guess on a thickness, I don't know, maybe about as thick as one, maybe two sheets of like standard printer paper. So it was pretty thin. So when you sand it down that thin, all of a sudden now there's no rigidity there. You know, the gel coat will move with the rest of the glass beneath it, and you have no issues. But there again, you got to make sure the surface is clean and it has been well sanded. I did all the sanding up on there using 90% of the sanding up there using a belt sander and 36 grit. So I had a lot of tooth up there, and it's going to work perfectly fine. All right, so the last comment that came up, and I don't even know if I'm going to include this in this video, just because I don't know that it's appropriate. But there was a lot of people asking, well, what's going on with that little sailboat, or what happened with the roads? Because it's still here in the shop, and you see it in all the videos. And honestly, there's some things, there's some issues that need to be worked out, and I haven't had a chance to do that yet. So yeah, I think that's about all I'm going to say with that. Hopefully you respect that answer and understand. I hope that at some point we'll be able to get the green light to go forward with this. But until some of these issues are taken care of, I'm not going to be touching it. I'm going to store it here so it doesn't get destroyed outside. But even then, I may not be doing that for too much longer, just because I'm getting a little bit tired of it taking up shop space if I'm not actually going to be doing something with it. So, all right. So the last thing, this is actually something that I haven't really talked about at all. I've talked about it over on Patreon, but I haven't said anything about it here publicly. And so, kind of the big news is that in a little while, I'm not going to say when because I don't want people to know when I'm not going to be home, but in a little while, I'm going to actually be taking a trip down to Charleston, South Carolina to go visit Alexial. I think it's Alexial Paints. For those of you that aren't familiar with it, now in the past, whenever I'm spraying paint, my go-to has always been all grip, or specifically all craft when I'm spraying it. All craft is just a variation, it's a buffable version of all grip. Now, without getting too technical here, basically all grip has two lines of paint, actual all grip, then all craft. All grip can be sprayed or rolled and tipped, but it cannot be buffed. So if you have a future repair to do, if you get a scratch or a ding or a chip, it's kind of tricky material to work with. Now, all craft, on the other hand, is easily repairable. You can wet sand it, you can buff it, you can do whatever you want, but it is a spray-only application. You cannot roll and tip it. So, I get a lot of people asking me, questions as far as what paint should they be using on their own projects. And in the past, that's always been kind of a tough one, because not many people are set up to be able to spray. I mean, to be able to do this safely, you need to have an enclosed area with excellent ventilation and a huge compressor. And straight up, most DIY people don't have that. They're working out of their backyard or in a garage or something along those lines. They just don't have access to the proper equipment to be able to do spraying. So, that kind of left, all grip, because you can roll and tip that. Well, there again, as a DIY, I want to be able to recommend products that are going to be repairable, easily repairable, without having to have a bunch of specialty tools and what have you. So I've always had a little bit of a hard time answering that question. So about a year ago, I came across this brand of paint, and it's nothing new. It's been around for quite a while, but the Alexial. But I came across them, and so they make a line of paint that is somewhat along the lines, it's kind of like a hybrid between all grip and all craft. From what I understand, the original chemists that made all grip, going way back when the company was purchased by another parent company, but anyways, the original chemists left all grip and went over and formed this new company called Alexial. So they took their lumps learn their hard lessons trying to come up with the all grip formulation, and then carry that over to Alexial to come up with, I guess, all grip 2.0 for lack of better words. And the major benefit there is that you can apply it roll and tip or spray, but regardless of how you apply it, you can wet sand it and buff it and make your repairs very, very easily. So as a DIY, that just sounds awesome. It sounds like the perfect paint. So long story short, I reached out to them, and without having any expectation, I just wondering if they could send me some information. And they actually invited me out to their facility in South Carolina to go through one of their training seminars. And what really kind of surprised me is that these training seminars are an invite only. You can't just throw some money their way and go and participate in this training session. It's an invite only, and the classes are limited to, I think it's either 12 or 15 people, and they do it 3 or 4 times a year. So it's a pretty big deal, so it's not something that many people get an opportunity to go do. So once I need to get myself down there, and then once I'm down there, then the rest of the stuff is covered by them. But I had to pay for the transportation, which is fine. It's a huge learning experience. So I'll be there for about 4 days, and then and then fly back home. So while I'm there, at least the itinerary is basically I'm going to be able to have some hands-on time with all of the products that they make. So everything from the primers to the paints, how to go through the repair process, and everything. That is going to be an invaluable, valuable lesson for me, especially getting some hands-on time with people that make this paint and people that have been using this paint for decades. So that is a big deal. So when I come back, my hope is that I'll be able to kind of pass this knowledge and share this experience with everybody here. And so flipping this over onto how this could apply to your own projects, we may just have a brand new go-to paint, which would be very, very cool. So fingers crossed on that. Again, I'm not going to say when I'm leaving, but it's fairly soon. I'll probably document it a little bit while I'm down there, and then once I get back, then I'll start putting some of this information out. If they let me record. I haven't asked that question yet, so we'll see. We'll see. And on that, I think I'm going to wrap this video up. Now, I understand that this is a shorter video compared to some of the others that I've been doing lately, but please remember that I'm trying to make the best of what I've got for this week, which isn't a whole hell of a lot. So I hope you found the video helpful, and if you did, please be sure to hit that thumbs up button, and if you haven't done so already, also hit that subscribe button. I'd love to have you on board. And questions, comments, as always, you can leave those down below. And until next time, thanks for your time, and thanks for watching.
This has been a Boatworks Today production.